So hello everyone and welcome back to this channel. So if you are preparing for an IBM full stack Java developer profile, then you have just clicked on a perfect video. So IBM is known for asking deep, practical and real world questions. Questions that does not just test your Java knowledge but also how you think, how you solve the problem and how you design a system in a real project. So in today's video, we are going to break down some of the most commonly asked IBM Java interview questions along with a clear explanation, real-time scenario, and exact answers interviewer expected from 3 to 8 year of experience as a full stack developer. Whether your interview is tomorrow, next week, or you are just starting your preparation. This video will help you to understand the pattern, avoid common mistakes, and answer confidently in front of any IBM interviewer or, in fact, any Java full stack developer interview. So, whether so guys, stay with me till the end because the last few questions are real scenarios interview questions which can truly make the difference between getting selected or getting rejected. So all the questions I will discuss here are provided by my friend who just appeared for the interview. So his tech skills was like full stack Java developer with Angular and also having worked with in the database side and also with a Spring and a Spring Boot. So let's begin our journey towards cracking the IBM interview starting right now. So the first question he got was like, tell me about yourself, and then like interview directly jump like which Java version you have used in your project. So he was using Java 17, but I will suggest you uh, to um, uh, to know Java 17 at least in a very deep manner, because nowadays the trend is that they are asking, they want, the interviewer wants to know that whether you have a knowledge of the latest Java or not. So I will suggest just look for the Java 17, because there may be chance that your project may be old and you might be using the lower versions. Like, and just have a good knowledge about all the other versions also. So in the first round, mostly he was tested in the core Java portion. So the first question he got, like, what happens if you try to assign a value to a final variable twice? So in this you need to know that what is final variable. So final variable is a variable in Java whose values cannot be changed or whose values are constant, right? So here interviewer want to know that whether you can assign a value to a final variable or not. So here in the example, you can see that there is a final int x equals to 5. And now if you are doing x equals to 10, so what will happen? Of course, you will get an error. So you have to say the compiler will complain that cannot assign a value to a final variable x. A final variable is like a constant, one set, it cannot be changed, right? So this should be the answer with a proper example so that they will know that you have a proper knowledge about these. So this was a very simple questions they started with. So the second question was, why Java enforce the final rule so strictly? Now they move deeply in the same question about a final variable, and they wanted to know that why Java forcefully act so strictly that the value of the final cannot be changed. So there are like couple of reasons for that. Okay, so when you mark something as a final in Java, you are making a strong contract with the compiler and the other developer that a Java enforce that rule at a compile time, not runtime, for several important reasons. First is like the predicatable and immutable behavior. So what is this mean? So when a variable, method, or a class is declared final, its behavior become fixed and predictable. Like like you can predict that a value of this variable cannot be changed as it is marked as a final. So it act as a contract between the compiler and a developer. That developer is not going to change this because it is marked as a final. So final variable can be used in like three ways: a final, as a final variable, as a final method, and as a final class. So when you mark any variable as a final, then it cannot be reassigned. It means it is a constant, as we have seen in the previous question. So second point, if you mark any method as a final, it cannot be overridden, right? And third, if you mark any class as a final, it means it cannot be subclassed. So it means you cannot use the inheritance concept because class is a final here, right? So this means the programmer and the compiler can rely on the fact that the value or the implementation will never change. So how this enforcing helps? So it strictly enforce and it ensures that the constant stay constant. It means that the variable which we have marked as a final will remain always constant. It means developers would not change that. And if class if the class hierarchies and methods behavior are stable, so that if you mark any class as a final, then it hierarchy and the methods behave as an stable, and the developer can safely reason out the program flow, so they can understand that this variable is a final variable. So due to this scenarios, it enforce so Java enforce final rules so strictly. So the second reason you can give is the thread safety and the data consistency. Okay, so what does this mean? In a multi-threaded environment, immutability is a huge advantage. When an object fields are declared final, they are guaranteed to be visible correctly to all the threads after the constructor finishes. Okay, so this is regarding the multi-threaded environment. So how this enforcing helps with the thread safety and data consistency? So by enforcing the final, Java ensures that the memory consistency after object construction. Second point, safe publication of immutable object between threads. Third option, it can simplify the concurrent programming. So you are safely shared immutable objects. So these are few reasons why the enforcing this rule is helpful. So the third point is safe inheritance and polymorphism. So what does this mean? It means that a final method or a class stops subclasses from changing critical behavior. Because we know that if you are using inheritance and if you are doing subclass, then we want to change some behavior, right? So that's why we want to inheritance, but it stops those scenarios. So no subclass can override any method, ensuring the validation and the transaction sequence always run safely. So how this is helping? Okay, so finalizing classes or method prevents accidental or like malicious overriding. So you cannot override accidentally, so it helps to get rid of it. It ensures that business critical or the security sensitive logic is stay intact, and it also keeps code behavior safe and consistent across inheritance hierarchy. Okay, so these are some points regarding the safe inheritance and polymorphism. The fourth point is like reliable compiler optimization. So Java compiler makes performance optimize, right? By assuming the final method will not change. For example, inline constant replace the variable with the value directly, or you can skip dynamic method lookups for final method. Okay, and the fifth point is due to the security and encapsulation. So final protects the sensitivity of a class and a method from modification or misuse, right? So here, for example, string is a final class, and it prevent takers from subclassing it and overriding the method, like it has a hash code method, it has a equal method, right? So the developer cannot override the string class and cannot override the hash code or the equals method of it. So by this, they cannot temper the security sensitive operations such as hashing, encryption, or database lookup. So this is the reason why the Java enforce the final rule so strictly, right? So yeah, so like I hope you got the point. So this is where you have to answer that if they ask that why Java enforce final rules so strictly. So this is very like important question, and in a deeply, if you understand the final variable, then you can answer this, right? So the next question was like what happens if you declare a class an abstract final. Okay, so you know that for a class you cannot means make any class as an abstract and also a final. So you will get a compile time error, and the compile time error, you have to remember, that is illegal combination of modifier, abstract, and final. An abstract class is meant to be subclass. It means other class can inherit it from it, and a final class cannot be subclass. So this is contracting, right? So you cannot achieve both for a single class. In abstract, you are saying that this class can be subclass, and with final, you are saying that this cannot be subclass. So these two scenarios cannot be achieved, right? For a same class. So that's why it is not allowed to use abstract keyword and a final keyword together to any class. So that's why the compiler will provide you illegal combination of modifier. So putting them together will be saying this class must be extended and this class cannot be extend a contradiction. So this is kind of a contradiction. All right. So why Java? Okay. So next question was what happens if you put the same key into a hash map twice? So this is also a very important question, that what happens if you put a same key in a hash map twice. So let's say if you have a hash map, and in the hash map, if you have some key as a key and the value a, and again if you are putting key with the value b, so what will happen? So basically you have to answer that the compiler will replace the second value. Okay, so it will replace the second value from the first. It means it will replace. So here what will happen, if you get if you do map dot get key, then it will give you the answer as b. So the first value will get replaced by the second value. So hashmap cannot have a duplicate key. This is the first point. Here you can see that we are using key and key, right? So only one unique key can be present inside hashmap due to the hash code or the hashing technique. So if you add a key that already exists, then the value get overridden with a new one. So if you do get, then you will get the second value, not the first one. Okay. So the next question, does Java always give the same output on all the system? This is also a very, very important question. The Java main strength is platform independent. It means you can write once, but you can run anywhere, right? So this is achieved because Java program runs on a Java virtual machine, not directly on operating system. So if you have a same Java version, if you run the same code, and if you run with the same input and environment, then yes, the output will be identical across Windows, Mac OS, or or like Linux. So it totally depend on how you are running that Java class, in which version, in which environment, or you are running with the same code or not, right? So if these condition match, then the output is going to be identical, always same. For example, system.out 5 plus 3 always going to give 8, no matter what system you run on it. But there may be scenario where Java may not give the same output. So you have to explain that part also. So there are some exceptions where environment or the system difference affect the result. First is the floating point precision on rounding. So small differences in floating point arithmetic can appear across different JVMs or hardware, especially on the different CPU architecture. So this may provide a different answer if you are using any floating point variables. So file path or encoding, because window uses like front for file path and Linux uses the back. Okay, it's backslash. So there are some differences. So this depend with this your output may change with the local and time zone, because date, time, currency or the number formatting may differ depend on the system, on the local or the time zone you are using, right? System properties and the environment variable, right? So also depends on the thread scheduling and concurrency. So multi-threaded program might produce different order of output even if the result is logically the same. So these are the some inputs where due to this environment change and system differences it may affect the output, and always it will not be same. So you have to explain both the scenario so that the interviewer will know that you have the good understanding about all this, right? Now the next question was some testing, like what can be the output. Okay, so in this you have to tell the output. So in the first you see the system.out.println 10 plus 20 plus Java. Okay, so here compiler reads, so this work as a mathematic operation. It's do the add like 30 and then it concatenate with Java. So it skips 30 Java in the first output. In the second output, as we are using a string, so it consider as a string, and then further it does not do the mathematical operation. It simply concatenate all the values. So Java 10, 20. Like this, you will get the output. So this is very important. So because you may get confused, but always remember if you are using a string, then because see how this works, actually the plus works left to right. Okay, so when both operands are number it adds, and once a string appears as in the second case, then it start concatenating, because the plus works from left to right side. Okay, from here to here. So first it sees 10 plus 20, that's a number, so it like tries to add it with a string, and the second output it sees a string, so it start concatenating, right? So this is way how the compiler read and it works. So this is also very important question. Now the next question is that can a null be used in a switch statement? No. A switch null throws a null pointer exception. In Java, switch statement can work with a certain type only. For example, it can work with a byte, sort, and char and int. So there can be also a wrapper classes like byte, sorter, character, integer with the capital letter, right? So that is a wrapper classes. And also you can pass enum type, and also a string with the Java 7 plus. But you cannot pass null. If you pass null, then it will give a it will give a null pointer exception. So when you pass a value to a switch, the Java internally calls a hash code or a equals method for a string, or compares the primitive value for a numerical value. If you're passing numerical value in this here, then it compares the value. If you pass a string, then it runs a equals method internally, right? So if a value being switched is on a null, then Java tries to evaluate it and it leads to a null pointer exception. That's why in switch you cannot pass as a null. So one like bonus interview questions yeah, so now I can remember is that if you say a null cause a null pointer exception in switch, because switch internally calls hash code or equals method on a value, then you will leave a strong impression on the interviewer, right? So So you should always means provide the answer in such a manner that interviewer will know that how things are working internally, that you know, right, while giving the or by replying the answer for a particular questions. Okay, so like this you try to provide the answer with an internal or with an example. So next question was, what happen if you modify a collection while iterating over it? So you will get a concurrent modification exception. So why this is happening? And so while iterating, if a thread tries to modify that collection, then why we are getting the concurrent modification exception? Okay, so in Java, when you are looping or iterating through a collection like array list, hash set, etc., and if you add or remove the element directly from that collection while still looping, the Java will throw an error called concurrent modification exception. So why does this happen? Java iterate So Java iterators are fail fast. They check whether the collection has been structurally modified. It means if the elements are added or removed from it. After that, the iterator was created. If it happens, then it detect the change that wasn't made through the iterator itself. It means any third person or third party is trying to modify it while iterating, then it get fail fast. It fails at that time only, and it throws a concurrent modification exception to prevent unpredictable behavior. So what is the correct way to modify using iterator own method? So there are methods. If you want to remove any element while iterating, then you can use the iterator remove method, so that the compiler will know that developer is using the iterator method, so it will not fail fast. Okay, or you can use the other collections like copy on write array list and all. So with this it will not fail fast, so they are fail safe. Okay, so this is the reason how or what happens if anyone is iterating in a collection and the collection get modified, then it get fails and you get a concurrent modification exception, right? So next question was like, what are Java 8 features? So you can name some Java 8, because Java 8 is very important, and in nowadays also in 2025, in 2026 also, I believe the interviewer is going to ask about the Java 8. So first was the lambda expression, second functional interfaces, stream API, default and static method, parallel stream. And there are many more features are added in Java 8. So lambda expressions are introduced for the functional style programming in Java. Functional interfaces with exactly one abstract method. For example, we have like runnable functional interfaces, callable interface, comparator, predict, functions, consumer, and also you can create your own functional interfaces by annotating that interface with the @functional interface. So @functional interface tells the compiler that this particular interface will have exactly one abstract method. If you try to provide more abstract method to that particular interface, which is marked with @functional interface annotation, then that compiler will fail and it will give a compile time error, right? And there were some other features like stream API, which is used to process the collection in a functional or a declarative way. It has certain methods, okay, by which it get stream. And there are some features like default and static methods are added in an interface help to help or to the like backward compatibility of the Java interfaces. And also there was like introduce some parallel streams where stream processing can be done in a parallel to improve the performance and all, right? So these are the some Java 8 features which you can go through and you have to see in a very depth manner about all these pointers. So the next question, when you call a REST API in a Spring Boot, what happens internally? This is very beautiful and deep knowledge questions, right? So let's say, suppose a client like a Postman or a browser send a request, let's say like localhost 8080 port slash hello. So what happens behind the hood? So first, the request comes to the embedded server. Okay, so Spring Boot uses an embedded web server like Tomcat, JT, or Undertow. When the request slash hello hits your application, the server receives a first on port number 8080 by default. So it receives the request by the embedded server. Then further, the server hands it to the dispatcher servlet. So Spring Boot auto configure a special servlet that is called as a dispatcher servlet. Think it is as a traffic controller. It decide that which controller method should handle the request, right? So dispatcher servlet is the first controller or a default controller which controls the means request. So it checks that because in a program or in a project there can be a number of controller. So this dispatcher servlet will check and see that which controller should get the request for this particular request, right? Then the request goes to dispatcher servlet. Then dispatcher servlet consults to the handler mapping. So dispatcher servlet checks with a handler mapping object to find which method is mapped to the hello, because in the slash hello should be some endpoint, right, inside your controller. So handler mapping will check that which endpoint is going to be get hit with this request. So it will pass to that particular method. In this case, it finds your method with a, say, let's say slash hello get mapping, because this is a get request. Okay, so yeah, so the next request goes to the controller method executes. So once found, the dispatcher servlet calls your method and the method runs your business logic. Here, maybe it can connect to the service layer, it may connect to the database, and then it will return the response to the dispatcher servlet again, and the dispatcher servlet will send back the response. Because you are using REST controller, so Spring Boot uses the HTTP message converters to convert your method response to a HTTP response in a JSON format. Okay, so this is way by which this is the whole flow how the REST API in a Spring Boot handles. So in a short, I can say that when a REST API is called to a Spring Boot, the request first goes to the embedded server, then it goes to the dispatcher servlet, which find the correct controller method, execute it, convert the results to the JSON using a HTTP message converter, and then return back to the as an HTTP response to the client. So this is a sort of flow how you can reply back to this question. So the next question was, what is the difference between at the rate request param, at the rate path variable, and at the rate request body? This is very important question and where the most developer get confused. So at the rate path variable is used in a URL path. If you are passing anything in the URL, then you can use, so let's say with a slash and then like bracket id. So this will be kept, so this id will be captured with the path variable. And again with the request mapping, if you are passing with the question mark in the URL, then you have to use a request param. So this is a query parameter. So with this id request param, you can capture the value whichever you are passing in the URL. And if you are passing any JSON object in a as a post or put in a request payload, then you can use at the request body to capture that a request payload which is coming as a JSON. So this can be used either in a post or a put. Okay, so request body need a message converter, that is JSON by default it is using to convert the JSON to an like Pojo class which is stored to its variables or the parameters, right? So path variable is used in the URL path with a slash id like this. So it's helped to capture the id value. And if in the URL if you're passing with a question mark, then you can use a request param. And if you're passing with a request payload, then you can use request body. All right. So next question was, what is the difference between ng on it and constructor in Angular? So now the next question was coming from the Angular, where the construction, see, constructor is the first which get called in an Angular component. So constructor is used for the dependency injection and it runs before the binding. So ng on it is a part of Angular lifecycle, okay, which runs after input are bound. And if you access at the rate input property inside constructor, then you will get undefined, because first the constructor get called and then after that ng on it get called. Okay, so this is the difference between the constructor and the ng on it. And constructor is not the part of Angular lifecycle hook method, but ng on it is the part of lifecycle hook method which runs after input are bound. Next, how can you communicate between component that does not have a direct parent child relationship? Okay, so let me give you some questions which can be asked as a bonus, like how to communicate between a component if component has relationship like parent to a child. And if you want to pass the data from parent to child, then how you can pass it? So if you're passing the data from parent component to a child component, in this you will use at the rate input decorator. And the second question may be asked, if you want to pass the data from the child component to a parent component, then in this case you can say you have to use at the rate output decorator, like this. So this question related to, if there is a no a relationship between any component, then how it can be passed. So here you can use two way. You can use like RSJS subject or a behavior subject in a shared service. Or second way is by using the event emitter, which can be possible only from child to parent, right? So these are the two way by which you can do the communication between the component that does not have a direct parent child relationship. So next question is like difference between the promise and observer. This is also very important question in Angular. So promise are eager. It means it get executed as it is processed. But observers are lazy. Until or unless you will not subscribe it, so observer will not work. So execution wise, promise is eager and observers are lazy. So in promise, you cannot pass multiple values, but in observer, you can pass multiple values. Once promise is executed, it cannot be cancelled, but observer can be cancelled by using unsubscribe. Operators are like for using a minimal data, and but for observers are using as an extensive with RxJS. So mostly we are using observer with the RxJS packages and all. Use case HTTP single response. If you want to pass any single response, then go with a promise. Otherwise, if you want to pass a multiple requests with a stream data with the events, polling or WebSockets, then use observer. So that will be very helpful. So next question was like when to use promise and when to use observable. This is also very important. You need to know that if you need to pass one time response like login, fetch or data only one time, then use promise. And if you don't need to cancel the request, then go with a promise. If scenarios comes where you need multiple values over a time, then go with the observable. If you want to cancel the subscription in some point of time, then go with the observable. If you need retry, rebounds, throater, then go with the observable. If you are working with a forms, event, or WebSocket, then go with the observer, because in this we pass a multiple values, and this is well supported with observable. So you should know when to use promise and when to use observable. This is also very important question. Okay. So the next question: what happens if Angular send JSON but Spring Boot expect form data? So Spring will throw 415 unsupported media type. So again, the interviewer may ask you like this, that that what is 415 unsupported media type. So there may be chance that he can ask like this. So you should know that whenever Angular send a JSON but a Spring Boot expect a form data, then in this scenario it will say 415 unsupported media type. So how you can fix this? By using @request body and ensure that Angular sends content type as an application JSON/JSON. So by this way you can fix this error. So next question: what are the biggest performance killer in a full stack app? So if you are a full stack developer, then this is the very, very important question for every interview, because I have seen that these questions are very, very much asked, and this tells that that how much information you have, or how much you have done the debugging. So the first can be too many HTTP calls. Okay, there is no batching. In efficient database queries, there may be that the database queries are taking lots of time to get executed, so it is killing the performance of a full stack. Or there may be chance that heavy Angular chains deductions are used, because see, in Angular, if you're creating any project, and in that project we use, in a very high number of chances, we use the Angular lifecycle hooks method. And and Angular lifecycle hook methods are very much useful, but at the same time it can make your application heavy, or it can degrade your performance, because you have to be very careful that where you are using this Angular lifecycle hook methods, because change detectors are very much there. So you should know the proper uses of Angular lifecycle hook methods, then only you can make your application to work in a better performance. And also, if you are not using the lazy loading, you are doing eager loading of the components, you are not using the pagination, you are loading or getting the response of a huge data in a particular API call, then there may be chance your Angular API or the response may corrupt your application. Or if you are getting a very large bundle size, like you are not doing like the production build, because with the production build it also like minify the CSS. Okay, and it also remove all, it checks and validate and remove unused uh, things. So these are the some pointers you should take care, which will improve your performance of your full stack application. So the next question was like, what is the difference between inner join, left join, and the right join, and the full join? So this is a very basic question, but this is very important one. Inner join, in which whenever there is a row matching in both side, then you will get the both if the rows are matching in the two table. Left join, if you have a two table and all items from the left but matching from the right. Okay, for the right join, if you have a two table, then all the content or the data from the right but the matching from the left. And the last one is full join, it gives all the rows from both the tables, null where no match. So this is also very important question regarding. And also you can practice some example like inner join, left join, because in the interview you may get that you will he will provide, the interviewer will provide the two table, and then he will write and then he will say you to write and query for inner join, for left join, or the right join. So you should know the syntax, and you should able to write all this. So these are the some example. So next question is that how you improve the performance of slow SQL queries. So this is also important because in a real project, this is a very big like overhead where we get this kind of scenarios where the SQL queries are very slow. So you should know that how to debug it or how to improve it performance. So you can say the points like add indexes on a frequent filter or join columns. So you have to add indexes to make that column to be faster, to be iterated faster manner, right? So you can avoid select star because it will fetch all the detail of all the columns. So if you know the requirement, then use a specific one. Also you can use explain plan to check the query cost, and you can use the pagination like you have a limit offset value which will provide the data in a very limited manner with the pagination, so that you should not load or get the data in a one call. Okay. Also you can use the denormalize where needed for a heavy application. So these are some pointers which we can say which will improve the performance of your SQL queries. So next question is that how can you find duplicate records in a table? So this is very basic but very important. I have seen out of 10 in 7 to 8 interview questions you get this kind of questions. So here is the query like select name count star from employee group by name having count. Yeah, so you can say that there is an employee table where there is a name for which you have to find a duplicate records. So if the count is 1, it means it is a duplicate. So like this you have to use group by. So main point is that you have to use a group by. You can you have to count it and then you have to see if it is greater than 1, then it means it is a duplicate record. And there are n number of way by which you can write the query. So this is just an example to show you that which questions are that he received in the IBM interview. But with the same manner, you can prepare for other questions related to database or the queries related to database. So the next question was that what is the difference between delete, truncate, and drop? So this is also very important questions. Question like delete is used for removing a specific row. So rollback is possible, but speed is slow for a delete. Uh, and for truncate, you if you have to remove all the rows, then go with a truncate. Rollback is not possible. Speed is fast. And drop, if you want to entire table in a schema. If you want to remove all the table data or the schema, then go with a drop. But rollback is not possible and the speed is faster in drop, right? So this is the way. If you reply, then I believe the interviewer will know that you have a good knowledge about all this. So these are the some set of questions which I received from my friend in the first technical round, and he got selected. So now he's waiting for the second round. Once the second round will be done, then I will try to prepare the second round for the IBM. So guys, if you want me to create the second round technical also, then just write in a comment. Then I will try to get all the questions which has been asked to him, and then I will try to create the second round also. So till then, thank you and have a nice day.